Hello brothers and sisters, and welcome back to the channel. We hope you're all staying safe out there, and as you can see, I am joined once again by my father, which can only mean one thing: it's time to talk about some football. 2020 NFL Draft is behind us. It was a rather unconventional draft this year given the circumstances, but it still produced plenty of memorable moments and talking points, especially for the Buffalo Bills. We're going to start off just by running down the picks, and then we'll go more in depth with our thoughts.
I just like, first of all, you can't really talk about the Bills draft without including the Diggs acquisition in there, and that was a huge part of their draft since they gave up that pick. That being said, we delved into that pretty good the last time we got together. So,
as my dad just mentioned, due to the Stephon Diggs trade, we did not have a first-round pick, so we started off in the second round where we picked defensive end A.J. Epinesa from Iowa. Then we went to round 3 where we went running back Zach Moss from Utah. And then round 4 on the third day of the draft, Gabriel Davis, wide receiver from UCF. And here is where things get interesting, because with round 5, we picked quarterback Jake Fromm from the University of Georgia. Followed by that, kicker Tyler Bass from Georgia Southern. No, don't boo. He didn't do it. Tyler Bass didn't do anything wrong. Round 6, we went back to wide receiver with Isaiah Hodgins, yeah. Oregon State. We had hard names to pronounce this year.
Sure.
I struggled with Epinesa and now Hodgins. Isaiah Hodgins from Oregon State. And round 7, we bookend the otherwise offensive center draft with cornerback Dane Jackson from Pitt. So that was a bit of a ride, this draft, real roller coaster, if you will. Before we get into the picks individually, overall, how do you think the Bills did this year?
Well, obviously you really don't know that at this point, but they did draft a couple guys at positions they needed. At the top, at their top of the draft. And I'm myself being a big Big Ten watcher for football. I've seen Epinesa play a few times and been very impressed. They filled a hole at edge rusher. They got what they think is going to be a good complement to Singletary, and they drafted 2 wide receivers that have pretty good size that they were lacking before.
I think the Bills got the guy they wanted in Epinesa. Before the Diggs trade, I saw a lot of mock drafts having us taking him in the first round when we still had our first round pick. And he ended up falling to us in the second round. I think that's a big success for the Bills. I think Epinesa was probably the guy that Bean had his eye on the whole time, and I wouldn't be surprised if when he made the Diggs trade, he may have known something that we didn't know and felt comfortable trading that first-round pick knowing that Epinesa would still be there in the second round.
Well, I think it's a little... I don't know. I think it's a little crazy to suggest that he made the Diggs trade because he knew that the guy would fall 30 picks to them in the second round. That seems pretty unlikely to me. I think he's a guy that the Bills liked from the very beginning, but I think that they were probably as surprised as anybody that he fell as far as he did. Now, that being said, he did not have a good combine, and that probably hurt his stock a little bit. And, of course, the Bills knew that he did not have a good combine, so maybe they thought they could make a grab for him. He's a guy that makes plays. Whenever I seem to watch Iowa play, he was a guy that was in the other team's backfield a lot. I think he'll probably help them as much as Shaq Lawson might have, at least if not this year, then soon after.
Yeah, he's pretty clearly the replacement to Shaq Lawson, I think. I think he'll benefit, too, because with the Bills having a defensive line that's as deep as it is, with guys like Addison and Hughes and Butler and Jefferson coming into the mix, I think he'll benefit much in the same way that Ed Oliver did last year, and not really getting the the full load of the snaps, not needing to get the full load of the snap. If he doesn't come out on fire like Oliver did last year, he'll have opportunity to develop, and I think with the depth and rotation the Bills will have at the defensive line, I think he'll be in good shape. I think he'll benefit. Let's move on to my personal favorite pick of the draft. I was really hoping we'd get this guy. Zach Moss, running back from Utah. I watched some tape on this guy, a few highlight packages after we made the pick. They said this in the draft coverage, but this guy is a bruiser. He's not afraid to initiate contact. He has a ton of yards after contact, which is great to have in the backfield. But I think what kind of goes under the radar with this guy is he's got quickness too. He can bounce it to the outside and really turn that corner with a lot of speed. And he's got a nasty, nasty cutback. He knows how to make guys miss. I'm excited to see this guy pair up with Devin Singletary.
Yeah, me too. He's a one-cut runner, and you're like you said, he's very quick on that cut. I think that one of the reasons they picked him is because he sets up well with how their offensive line works. Tough kid, played hurt a lot, which I don't know if that's a good thing or not. He did have a workload, which means that he's already taken a lot of hits, so that might be a little bit of a drawback. One thing I like about this pick, and the Bills seem to have an eye for this kind of thing. They've done it with players in the past, and they really did it with this draft. Is they're drafting guys who have produced in college. Yeah. They're not drafting guys who just are workout warriors or, were hurt half the time, so they drafted, and it looks like they might have some potential. This year they really drafted guys that were very productive players in college, and I'm a big fan of that. I think that leads to good things in the pros.
Gabriel Davis, I don't really know a lot about the kid, but he's got size and, from what I understand, good hands. So
well, UCF has turned into a pretty good program, and their level of talent there is pretty high. They've put guys into the pros in the past, say, 5 years or so. The big thing about him is he's getting, he's a good guy for separation, and he's a tall, strong receiver. The knock on him seemed to be that UCF really didn't use him a lot to run various routes. That he was kind of a one or two route guy. So they're going to find out. They're going to find out if he's got that ability to run the route tree and where he fits in.
But let's talk about the pick that I think all the Bills fans are talking about right now, and even the non-Bills fans are talking about this. This pick really took me by surprise, if I'm being completely honest. Jake Fromm, the quarterback who led Georgia to the national championship game just 2 years ago, right?
I believe that's right.
2 years ago, is now a Buffalo Bill. How do you feel about that?
Well, again, same thing that I said about Moss and Epinesa. The guy has produced in college. He's produced at every level he's ever been at, and you can't overlook that. Smart kid. I'm a big believer that, and I know Matthew is not, that you could draft. I don't care who you have. You could draft a quarterback every year. The kind of thing that worries me a little bit about him is not the size, because there's other quarterbacks in the league that are his size that have been able to have pretty effective careers. But every evaluation I saw, everything I read about him basically said he's just not able to make all the throws because his arm strength is not there.
I don't subscribe to the same school of thought as you do when it comes to drafting a quarterback every year. But the more I think about the Jake Fromm pick, the more it makes sense to me. Every evaluation I've seen from this kid says that he is a great guy to have in the quarterback room. And if that's the case, then I think he's going to make Josh Allen better. I think he's talented enough that if maybe Josh Allen kind of stagnates again in his in this year, he might be able to push him a little bit and maybe make him sweat a little bit in the starting position if they need him to. But by all accounts, he's a very smart kid, always looking to learn more about the game. and he's going to make the Bills' quarterback room a lot better from what I hear.
I certainly don't think he's in any position to push Josh Allen this year.
I don't either.
And let's face it, the ideal scenario for Jake Fromm as a Buffalo Bill would be for him to be the backup quarterback, maybe get to play every now and then in blowout games, or if Allen gets hurt for short periods of times, come into games that mean something, and then after his 4 or 5 years as on his rookie contract with the Bills, he goes and signs a big free agent deal somewhere to start for another team. And I mean, I think if that's the way it goes, I'm pretty happy about that, because it means we've had a solid backup for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, and I think that's what they got here. They got a really solid backup, and Matt Barkley will still be in there maybe to provide a little bit of veteran experience for these two guys. And I think the quarterback position as a whole is going to do well. I say maybe because the last 2 years are any indication. These guys aren't afraid to go into a season with just two quarterbacks.
Well, I think that's the most interesting thing that comes around with this pick is if they'll view Fromm as a developmental player and keep him as the third quarterback, or if they will try to get him in to be the backup and in place of Barkley. That's the interesting decision they're going to have to make. And you're right, they've gone into the last couple seasons with two quarterbacks. In fact, you could make a case that the first year they were here, they went into the season with less than two quarterbacks. So
Nate Peterman was one of those
that's
quarterbacks.
Right.
Let's talk about the real head scratcher of this draft. The Bills went kicker in the 6th round. We weren't the only ones, though. I mean,
he wasn't even the first kicker taken.
The Patriots took a kicker. The Falcons took a kicker. The Jets took a punter. There was a run on kickers in the 6th round.
The Dolphins
for some
took a long
reason.
snapper.
And the Dolphins took a long snapper. They actually took Reed Ferguson's brother, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
There was a real run on kickers in the 6th round of this draft, which is inexplicable to me. But Tyler Bass is now a Buffalo Bill. How do we feel about that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a huge Hauschka fan. You know that.
Yeah.
I liked him when
he struggled last year.
I liked him when he first got here. I don't think, let's face it, if they had a kicker with a big leg in that Houston game last year, they would have tried a long field goal to win that game in overtime.
Yeah.
As it was, that wasn't an option for them. They knew that they couldn't kick a field goal from 55 yards or whatever it was. So Hauschka's got to win the job this year, I think. I don't know. You look at where they took him, and everything you read about him is big leg.
Yeah.
Well, his longest field goal in his college career was 50 yards, and he wasn't wildly accurate either. I mean, his senior year, I think he hit 70% of his kicks. Now, if you're drafting a guy just so he can kick it out of the end zone for touchbacks, well, I don't think those guys are that hard to find.
The logical conclusion to draw from this pick is that they're looking elsewhere from Stephen Hauschka.
Absolutely.
Right? But but if you're Stephen Hauschka, are you really sweating because we signed Kari Vedvik, the guy who couldn't make a field goal to save his life last season, and some guy that we drafted in the 6th round?
Well, I think if you're Hauschka, you're really sweating because they were ready to push him out of that job last year when they put the waiver claim in on McLaughlin. Yeah. And had they gotten him, Hauschka might be on the street right now.
Yeah.
So clearly he has to win that job. There's no doubt about it. But I don't know. My opinion is that Bean was happy with the draft with Moss and Epinesa and the guys they got, and he probably had a couple beers, and he was. The 5th round, the pick came up in the 6th round, and he just kind of said, what the hell? Let's take the kicker.
Yeah. We had 2 picks in the 6th round, and we spent that second 6th round pick on Isaiah Hodgins, wide receiver out of Oregon State. We double dipped on wide receiver. I kind of like Davis. I don't know a lot about this kid, but he's tall. Maybe you know more about him than I do.
I just know that he played in the Pac-10, so that's an elite. That's a Power 5 conference. So he played against good competition. Again, a pretty productive player at Oregon State.
Yeah.
But if I had to guess, probably a practice squad guy this year.
Yeah, practice squad. It does the wide receiver position is one of the more interesting position battles going into the training camps this year, because you still got guys like Duke Williams and Robert Foster on the squad. If they're really serious about making room for these two guys that they drafted, I would say those are the guys that are the odd man's out on this draft.
Well, I think
roster.
I think if you look at the big picture at wide receiver, I mean, obviously the top three make it. I mean, they didn't. You look at a guy like Davis, who they picked in the fourth round. I think he's got to really be really be not what they expect for him not to make the roster. So I think you're looking at those four guys for sure on the roster. Hodgins, like I said, I believe will be a practice player. Then after that, they've still got Andre Roberts, who they like in the return game. Mm-hmm. So then after that, you're probably talking about several guys: Williams, McKenzie, maybe Hodgins, some of Foster for probably one spot, maybe two.
Yeah, I honestly don't think Robert Foster is long for this team anymore.
I think that's probably true.
And I think Williams might be in trouble as well. And I think these picks confirm that they weren't impressed much with Duke Williams, and they're looking to move on from him.
Well, I wouldn't go so far as to say they're looking to move on from him, but I just think they can do better there.
And then the 7th round, using the 7th round pick that we acquired from the Vikings in the Stephon Diggs trade, we go for some cornerback depth with Dane Jackson, Pittsburgh. And Dad was sitting next to me when I called that they were going to pick Lamar Jackson, the cornerback from somewhere. They went with the wrong Jackson, but I was still pretty close.
Well, I would have loved to have seen him get Lamar Jackson just for a little quarterback depth. But good. I don't know anything. I don't know much about Dane Jackson. Probably the biggest thing I've read about him is he had good cover skills.
Yeah.
He has good cover skills, and you can never have enough guys like that.
Yeah.
I think he's cornerbacks make the NFL teams when they're drafted unless they're complete busts, and I think he's probably got a chance to make the team. At what spot, I don't know, but more competition and more athletic ability at cornerback is always a good thing.
Yeah, best case scenario, I think this is a solid depth pick to put behind Josh Norman. They and Levi Wallace maybe. Mm-hmm. They needed some depth on that cornerback position outside of opposite side of Tre'Davious White, and I think they got it with this pick. From everything I hear, he not a lot of interceptions in his career, but like you said, good cover skills, really tough to beat on routes, and good anticipation too.
And I don't know that much about him. I like Teron Johnson as the slot guy, but he's hurt often, and if they could slot this guy in maybe behind him, that would be good.
Yeah. For a 7th round pick, I think this is a pretty solid pick. I mean, there's potential for this guy to be on the main roster. There's potential for him to even get playing time if the opportunity arises.
Well, if he's on the roster, he'll play because all defensive backs play some. Obviously he's going to have to play special teams.
Yeah, special teams. For the 7th round, pretty good pick. I think overall this was a really good draft for the Bills. The kicker pick is perplexing. The Jake Fromm pick was very surprising at first, but the more I think about it, the more I get it. And I love the first two picks of Epinesa, a first-round talent guy who ended up falling to us in the 2nd round, and Zach Moss. I love what he brings, especially when you pair him with Singletary. I think this was a very successful draft for Buffalo.
Well, I'm not a big one to grade drafts before I see any of these guys actually put on a uniform.
Yeah.
But they drafted guys with big motor, big hearts who are motivated to play and play well, and they drafted guys that were like I said before, produced in college. So they know what needs to be done at that level to be successful players.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can go wrong when you're picking guys like that.
Yeah. And it may be too early to tell this, but just out of curiosity, the and it's worth mentioning, the Minnesota Vikings used the pick that they acquired from us in the Diggs trade to select wide receiver Justin Jefferson out of LSU. So, knowing now what players were produced by the draft picks that we gave up, how does, if at all, how does that change how we look at the Diggs trade?
Well, it doesn't change anything for me. You know, from watching a couple of LSU games with me, I love Jefferson. I think he's going to be a really good pro. But there's no. I mean, you can't challenge the fact that Diggs is going to be better coming out of the box next year than Jefferson. Yeah. I mean, and that's something that I wouldn't necessarily overlook with how the Bills pick their guys. I'm not saying that Epinesa or Moss are going to be, Pro Bowl players right out of the box, but they are probably going to play effectively next year. And I think that some teams, the Bills included, looked at guys in the draft that they knew would be able to show up and produce without going through the mini camps, the OTAs, maybe even training camp, that could take the field and hit the ground running because they're smart players and have been able to play before. I don't think there was an accident that they picked guys like that.
Yeah, I'm high. If anything, I'm higher on the Diggs trade now because with like I said, AJ Epinesa, a lot of mock drafts had us taking him in the first round before the Diggs trade. And he falls to us in round 2, and we got Stephon Diggs. I absolutely see that as a win for Buffalo.
Of course, absolutely.
With all that being said, it was nice to have a sporting event to look forward to in the draft during this time where no sports are taking place right now.
Well, I'm not one. I don't know if I'd call the draft a sporting event.
Well, you don't. I mean, I know you don't watch the draft, and I know you don't really care about their coverage and stuff. But it was nice to have something sports related to look forward to for a change.
And the other thing I'll say too is to our watchers out there, they probably don't know this, but Matt and I and our sister and mother have we've been watching a lot of the musical things that performers have been doing from their houses and things like that. And the draft provided the same distraction, the same diversion as watching those people sing and things like that. So. Yeah. Credit to the NFL for pulling it off and not pushing it back because, like you said, it was able to provide a diversion. It's not the same as watching, the Indians and the Twins play, or
the Indians and the Cubs in Game 7.
Yeah, that's enough of that. All right, are we done yet?
We'll wrap it up there. Thank you very much for joining us. If you'd like to like and subscribe to the channel, we would both be very grateful and it would help us out a lot. Until the next video, stay safe out there, have a blessed week, and we'll see you in the next video.
Be smart, stay safe, everyone.